It's September 2023. Off the coast of Ireland, a large cargo ship is trying to escape the Irish Navy. On board, the crew are panicking. They're pouring fuel over huge bags of cocaine and setting them on fire, trying to get rid of the evidence. Behind them, a Navy ship is getting closer. A helicopter flies overhead, then special forces descend below onto the ship. Inside, they find over 2 tons of cocaine. It's worth 157 million euros. This is the biggest drug bust in Irish history. The ship, called the MV Matthew, had traveled all the way from South America, picking up the drugs in Venezuela. The plan was to meet a smaller boat off the Irish coast, pass over the cocaine, and then sneak it into the country. But the small boat crashed. Behind this plan was a major drug gang with people based in Dubai, South America, and Europe. The operation led to the arrest of 8 men who have since been jailed for a combined 129 years. This is the story of how Ireland caught one of the biggest drug shipments Europe has ever seen, and the gang that tried to get away with it. An organized crime group based in Dubai, widely believed to be the Irish Kinahan Cartel, orchestrated the smuggling operation. Using a Dubai front company called Symphony Marine, the conspirators purchased a 190-meter bulk cargo ship and registered it under the Panamanian flag in August 2023. This vessel, later renamed the MV Matthew, was ostensibly a freighter for legitimate goods, but its true purpose was to carry multi-ton cocaine shipments across the Atlantic. To staff the operation, the crime syndicate recruited experienced mariners from around the world. Several of the eventual crew members were invited to Dubai for interviews and promised lucrative payments for a transport job. Most had backgrounds in commercial shipping or naval training. One man, however, stood out, a Dutch-Turkish national named Kumali Ozgen, who had no seafaring expertise but was embedded on board as the cartel's eyes and ears. His sole task was to supervise the contraband and enforce the cartel's interests during the voyage. The plot called for the MV Matthew to rendezvous with smaller boats at sea to offload the drugs before reaching any port. In early September 2023, the ship departed the Caribbean with a stated destination of Poland, a false route intended to deflect authorities. In reality, as the ship skirted the coast of Venezuela, smugglers loaded about 2.25 tons of cocaine onto it from another vessel on September the 5th. The crew allegedly got 15 sailors drunk to distract them while cranes lifted heavy bales of cocaine into the cargo hold. Meanwhile, in Ireland, local operatives set up the other end of the scheme. A fishing vessel named the Castlemore was purchased for 300,000 euros on the 21st of September. This 20-meter boat would serve as the primary offload vessel. At least 4 shadowy persons of interest on Irish soil were involved in arranging the Castlemore's purchase. Investigators later revealed that one key individual flew in from Dubai to provide funds and instructions, codenamed Rain Man in subsequent communications, while another was an Irish contact in Newry who helped coordinate logistics. The FV Castlemore was outfitted with a Starlink satellite internet system to enable encrypted communications at sea. 2 crew members were assigned to man this vessel: Vitaly Lapa, a Ukrainian mariner, and Jamie Harbron, a British national, neither of whom had ties to Ireland beyond this plot. The plan was for the MV Matthew to loiter off Ireland and transfer 2.2 tons of cocaine onto the FV Castlemore in international waters, after which Castlemore could quickly dash to a secluded Irish port or cove to unload the drugs. However, using a repurposed fishing boat came with risks. Castlemore was not built for high seas cargo transfers, especially not in poor weather. Its mechanical condition would prove to be a critical weak link in the scheme. As the MV Matthew was preparing to sail, a special group chat was created for all key players. This chat linked the crew on the Matthew, the team on the Castlemore, and the handlers on land, in both Ireland and Dubai. Messages ranged from practical navigation updates to coded instructions and status reports on weather and engine performance. The encrypted chats also reveal the hierarchy of command. The crew on the ships took orders from the land-based bosses. During the operation, the men in Dubai gave step-by-step directives: when to attempt transfers, what to say to authorities if intercepted, and later, how to flee. Even though the messages were set to disappear, forensic technicians recovered most of them from the phones. These recovered texts became key evidence, allowing prosecutors to reconstruct the smugglers' play-by-play decision-making in remarkable detail. By early September, international law enforcement was already onto them. A multinational intelligence effort involving agencies across the world had identified Matthew as a suspicious vessel potentially carrying narcotics. In Ireland, the Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau and Revenue Customs Service were alerted. They began a joint surveillance operation, anticipating Matthew's arrival in Ireland. Authorities were not initially certain where the contraband would be offloaded. Ireland, the UK, or mainland Europe were all possibilities. But Ireland's long coastline and the presence of known Irish gang figures made it a prime candidate. Irish officers also tracked suspicious activity on shore. In July, Vitaly Lapa had arrived in Ireland and spent weeks living in hotels, raising flags for investigators. In mid-September, Garda surveillance units observed Lapa traveling to Newry, Northern Ireland, where he met with an unidentified individual, believed to be an Irish crime figure, giving him instructions. From the 23rd to the 26th of September, the Irish Air Corps, Naval Service and Gardaí shadowed Matthew's approach into Ireland's exclusive economic zone. At this stage, Irish authorities intended to catch the smugglers in the act of transferring or possessing the drugs in Irish jurisdiction, a necessary element to charge them under Irish law. They waited patiently rather than moving too early and risking the contraband being dumped or diverted. The first rendezvous attempt was set under cover of darkness on the night of the 23rd of September. Matthew arrived at a predetermined point off the south coast of Ireland. However, the seas were rough and nighttime visibility was poor. Coordinating a ship-to-ship transfer in such conditions was extremely challenging. On top of that, Castlemore began experiencing mechanical problems. Its engine was unreliable and its satellite link kept dropping out, cutting off the small boat's Wi-Fi-based communications. Multiple attempts were made to link up on the 23rd and into the 24th, but Castlemore never made the arranged points. The frustration was evident from WhatsApp messages. At one stage that weekend, a crewman vented that he'd rather go to prison than stay in this storm. Matthew, being a large vessel, also faced the issue that it couldn't drift around aimlessly without raising suspicions. The ship's unusual course was noted by Ireland's Coast Guard and Naval Service, further confirming to authorities that something suspicious was happening. By the morning of the 24th, the smugglers regrouped for another try. The plan was revised and a new rendezvous time arranged for later on the 24th. Determined to make this work, Matthew's captain, Sohail Jelve, went so far as to move the cocaine out of the hold onto the deck of the ship, hoping to expedite the transfer when the Castlemore arrived. He snapped a photo of the cocaine on deck and sent it to the group chat that morning. By that afternoon, Castlemore was limping at under 1 knot of speed due to engine failures. The small boat had already had its engine cut out twice and was barely maneuvering. Castlemore then ran aground on a sandbank in the shallow waters of Waterford Harbour. At around 8 p.m, the stricken fishing boat sent out a distress call. The 2 men aboard, Lapa and Harbron, were suddenly fighting for their lives as waves battered the grounded boat. An Irish naval ship, which was in the vicinity, dispatched a rescue team, and both men were winched from Castlemore and brought aboard the naval vessel to safety. Once aboard the Navy ship, however, Lapa and Harbron's fate was sealed. On the evening of the 25th, Matthew was observed sailing in erratic loops off Ireland, moving up and down the coast repeatedly, as if stalling for time or unsure where to go next. Naval Service surveillance later noted that they zigzagged 37 times along the coastline during this period. Aboard the vessel, Captain Jelve made a drastic decision. Fearing imminent capture, he simulated a sudden health emergency, claiming to be gravely ill. The Irish Coast Guard responded to assist. Jelve was airlifted by helicopter and taken to a hospital. In what can only be described as a suspiciously timed exit, Jelve took with him 2 suitcases and 3 mobile phones. When authorities later searched his luggage, they found $53,000 in cash stuffed in one suitcase. The phones included one device that had been used on the smugglers' WhatsApp group. Jelve was promptly placed under arrest at the hospital, under guard, once his medical condition was deemed non-critical. Command of Matthew now fell to the second officer, Vitaly Vlasoy, an experienced mariner, and now found himself thrust into the captain's chair in a spiraling crisis.
Okie dokie, Vitaly. Good luck, your first command. Unfortunately, the flag is Panama. I cannot make you real captain because it requires COC, and quick COCs are not acceptable by Panama. But anyhow, we will go ahead. We will go ahead for now.
He began communicating directly with the Irish Naval Service and customs vessels that were shadowing the MV Matthew, while simultaneously taking orders from the Dubai-based bosses via the encrypted chat. At first, Vitaly tried to buy time. He told Irish authorities that Matthew was having engine trouble and needed to stop and anchor for repairs. When ordered by the Irish Coast Guard to proceed to Cork Harbour immediately for inspection, Matthew replied that they were addressing minor problems and would head to port soon.
MV Matthew, Hotel 3, Golf. This is Irish Patrol, Papa 6-3 on your starboard side. MV Matthew, Irish Customs. Under Section 26 of the Customs Act 2015, I am directing your vessel to the port of Cork.
Had a talk with agents. You are good to drop anchor at the position Captain Said will advise. We will wait at this position until we do the job. So the job is engine repairs.
During these tense hours, the Dubai controllers were in constant contact. Over the chat, they told the crew they had consulted lawyers and confidently asserted that Irish customs had no authority to board a vessel outside territorial waters.
All the communication with the Coast Guard, whatever Coast Guard is telling you, please send in the group. I hope that nothing will be against our wish, against our will, and everything goes to the favor of everybody.
Our intention to put Customs Board party on board your vessel. Can you please confirm how long it would take you to provide a board ladder? Over.
Increase your distance from the land. You will get the proper instruction for further steps. And God bless.
Be advised, we are now in a hot pursuit situation. Over.
As you can see, the method of boarding in case of not being in territorial waters is different. So don't get panicked.
Irish Naval Command, however, was done tolerating the cat and mouse game.
You are obstructing a customs officer in conducting their duty, which carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison on an indictment conviction. We are requesting that you alter your course to starboard, do a safe course, a more direct route to Cork immediately. Over.
By midday on the 26th, the ship had strayed close to the limit of Irish waters and was showing every intent to flee. At approximately 12:11 p.m., the naval patrol vessel formally declared itself a warship and issued an ultimatum. As part of standard protocol, warning shots were fired ahead of the Matthew's bow.
I have fired a warning shot. Do you understand? Over.
Irish warship, please don't fire at us. We are not in contagious zone, nor your local jurisdiction. Can you advise if you are in hot pursuit of us? Because we are commercial vessels, please do not endanger our safety.
Our convention and the law of the sea applies. We are in hot pursuit. You will not comply with my orders. I will now issue a further warning shot.
Even as this exchange took place, the ship maintained maximum speed. Upon hearing that the Navy was not going to back off, the cartel bosses gave the order to their men: destroy the evidence.
Motor vessel Matthew, this is Irish warship. I understand that you have received charter instructions to proceed to Sierra Leone. You are to ignore those orders and comply with my instruction. My instruction remains that you proceed direct to Cork Harbour. Do you understand? Over.
Till now, there is no helicopter for you guys, no commando, nothing. Okay? Be confident. There is a law preventing them to board the ship. My stress level is near to heart attack. Try to be calm. Be calm. Give your final command and demand to the warship and the custom with confidence. Switch off VHF, full speed go. If the chopper's coming, put the lifeboat on fire and it. Otherwise, good luck.
As Matthew pressed on, Ireland's naval service enacted a plan. A military helicopter swooped in over the speeding ship. On board were highly trained operators from the Army Ranger Wing, Ireland's Special Forces. The Army Rangers executed a fast rope insertion from the hovering chopper down onto the deck. The armed Rangers fanned out and secured the vessel. They encountered little resistance. The stunned crew did not put up a fight when faced with an elite tactical unit. The Rangers discovered that the smugglers had started a fire in one of the lifeboats on deck. Inside that lifeboat were piles of cocaine bales, doused in accelerants and set alight. Within a short time, the fire was put out. Navy personnel then piloted the ship toward Cork Harbour, while the Rangers and Gardaí began a thorough search and evidence preservation operation on board. 6 men were secured in handcuffs. After offloading, officials showed that the contraband filled over 80 large bales, each bale containing numerous 1-kilogram bricks of high-purity cocaine. The estimated street value was €157 million. In the aftermath of the raid, Irish authorities had a treasure trove of evidence to piece together the full story. Foremost were the digital communications retrieved. Despite the smugglers' efforts to dump phones, a number of devices were recovered from the arrested captain and crew. Forensic analysts from the Garda National Cybercrime Bureau were able to extract the WhatsApp and Signal chat histories. These logs provided timestamps, GPS coordinates, and content of messages that mapped out the conspiracy. Once in custody, the men were interviewed at length. Initially, most gave little away. Some tried to downplay their roles or plead ignorance of the cocaine. But confronted with the digital evidence, many started to admit involvement. In total, 8 men were charged and convicted for their roles in the smuggling operation, 6 from the ship's crew and 2 from Castlemore. Given the organized crime elements, the case was prosecuted in the Special Criminal Court. The defendants all pleaded guilty to drug trafficking offenses. In June 2025, after evidence and mitigation hearings, the court meted out stiff prison sentences to each man. Kumali Ozgen received the heaviest sentence, 20 years. The court considered him the cartel's representative on board. He occupied an officer's cabin, despite no maritime role. Harold Estoesta got 18 years. The court heard that no other crew member defied authorities quite like Estoesta did. He persistently ignored naval orders. Captain Sohail Jelve received 17.5 years. He was a seasoned mariner with a master's degree in navigation and lecturing experience in Iran. Financial desperation seemingly drove him. He had moved to Dubai and wanted to fund a soccer academy and secure residency. The court did acknowledge personal mitigating factors. His wife in Iran has cancer, and he had an otherwise clean record. Saeed Hassani was sentenced to 15 years. He too had no prior convictions and came from a background of legitimate maritime training. His letters in court portrayed him as a family caretaker who yielded to financial pressures. As third officer, he would have been involved in navigation and likely in managing the ship's engine room or deck operations during the smuggling. The two other Ukrainian crewmen, Vitaly Vlasoy and Mikhailo Gavrik, got 16.5 years and 14 years respectively. Both were highly trained seafarers. Mikhailo had studied at a prestigious maritime academy in Odessa and even worked for a major shipping line as a cadet. Character references described Gavrik as an intelligent, conscientious young man who excelled in chess and academics. Vitaly similarly had a solid maritime career and a young family. Vitaly Lapa received 14.5 years. A letter from his wife in Ukraine detailed how their home region was war-torn, and that financial necessity drove him to this scheme. Lapa had a son in maritime college to support, and the family was at risk of losing their home. These factors likely earned him some sympathy. Finally, Jamie Harbron received the lightest sentence at 13.5 years. Harbron was the sole UK citizen. A psychological report depicted him as impulsive, anxious, and not very educated. He followed Lapa's lead. His harrowing near-death experience when the Castlemore wrecked left him with PTSD. The bust was a huge hit to the organised crime group behind it. Though none of the alleged cartel bosses have, yet, been publicly charged in relation to the seizure,